Hello and welcome to the Athletics NI Talks with podcast, and I am your host today, Elaine Grant, CEO of Athletics Northern Ireland. I'm delighted on our podcast we have the wonderful Lady Mary Peters, as you can see, our Olympic gold medalist, our multiple Commonwealth Games medalist, our patron as a governing body. Mary's our patron and also the founder of the Mary Peters Trust. Delighted to have you here and thanks for giving us your time today.
Thank you very much, and it's Mary P from now on.
Mary P. Great. So welcome, and how are you today?
I'm good. Wonderful day, seeing the track being well used
It's
and
amazing,
seeing so many young people maybe on the start of their sporting career.
Exactly.
And this is the most beautiful venue at the Mary Peters track, which was where I did some of my training, but it was full of potholes when I was doing that preparation for my Olympics. And so it's so nice that we've got a really good, purposeful track for the athletes.
High quality track. Would it have been a cinder track in your day?
Originally it was, and then Queen's University put an experimental rubber surface track here in the 60s, and unfortunately it was porous. So the water went through, and when the frost hit it, and it exploded the track. So it ended up as an experiment that didn't quite work. But it was a vision from Queen's University that they had. So I trained on it, which was full of potholes. And then when I won my Olympic medal in Munich, I was asked by the Belfast Telegraph what I would like to commemorate my success. And foolishly, I said a track.
There you go, and here we are today, the legacy of that.
It took 3 years for me to collect the money, and from all over the world people contributed. So it has been provided here by the public and commercial companies of Northern Ireland for the young people to be able to use. And then, of course, it got worn because it was so well used. So Belfast City Council were approached about taking it over because we couldn't afford to go out to the public again for subscription. So I love it. It's my little bit of heaven when I come down here, and especially when I see it being well used.
Of course. And I believe actually it was very quickly after you came back from Munich that all of that started, and there was a committee set up. Can you tell us a little bit about that piece and how you raised those funds?
Well, when I arrived at the airport in Belfast, being accompanied by detectives because there'd been a threat to my life if I came home, the troubles were at the height, and they had a gold Rolls Royce to drive me into the city. But because there had been a threat to my life, they took me on a different route, and I didn't see all the flags waving, saying "Welcome home, Mary," and the Mary Peters Track Fund. So it was a challenge, but an adventure and a journey to get the facilities here improved, because I wanted my success to be an inspiration for others to take up the sport. And it took us probably the 3 years to collect the money, and we only had a 6-lane track then because the price of oil kept increasing at that time, and the surface was a side product of oil. So every time we thought we had the money, we had to have another go at it. So eventually we ended up with a 6-lane track, which of course wasn't international standard. So, but it was well used, and we used to have people like Zola Budd and John Walker from New Zealand, and all sorts of international athletes came and competed here. And those banks on the far side of the track would have been full of people enjoying sport. But nowadays, of course, money is so tight and it's so difficult to get sponsorship of that magnitude, and the athletes charge more money to come and compete, that we won't have those spectaculars, but they're not as important as the days like today when the young people are experiencing running around a track where the stars have gone before them.
Exactly. And that leads us quite nicely into with the district schools happening out there at the minute. How did you fall in love with athletics, and how did you first get involved? What was your inspiration?
I was very lucky that I wasn't very good with ball games, and I was trying to play cricket very badly at school one day, and the headmaster said to me, "Mary, you're wasting your time here. We have an athletic coach on the other field coaching the boys. Would you like to go and join them?" Because it was great for me to go and join the boys. And it was a man called Kenneth McClelland, who was a former pupil of the school. And he took me under his wing and started coaching me. And he asked me one day, would I like to do a pentathlon? And I, at school, only did the 100 yards, the 220 yards, the high jump and long jump.
Oh,
So
no.
I had to and I had to learn new skills of putting the shot and doing the hurdles. So my dad made me some hurdles out of wood, and we used to practice in the field behind the house. And I started putting the shot, and I did my first pentathlon when I was 16. And there was a lady called Thelma Hopkins, who was a world record holder in the high jump, and another athlete called Maeve Kyle.
Yes.
And they both played hockey for Ireland. Maeve was quite a mature athlete. She only started in the sport when she was 26. But I competed with them in the first ever pentathlon here when I was 16, and they were first, second, and I was third.
Wow.
And I was looking at the results the other day, and they were, by today's standards, they were quite amateur, but we didn't have any facilities, and it was just a hobby for me. So I started putting the shot and breaking the Northern Ireland record very quickly, and still got the muscle to show it. And each time I broke the Northern Ireland record, the shot weighed light. So my dad went to the local foundry in Portadown and got me an accurate weight shot.
He got you a good one made.
He did, and he laid down the first ever cement shot circle in Ireland in the field behind our house so that I could practice, and made me the wooden stopboard. So I wasn't born in Northern Ireland, so I could only hold all-comers records. I couldn't hold native records. But out of the 5 events, the 2 strongest in my pentathlon in the Munich Olympics were my strongest events. I ran faster than... in fact, I broke the Olympic record in the heat in my pentathlon. Until it was broken in the next heat.
Oh, no.
But, my journey was opportunities that came. I had the right coaching and the right opportunities to develop. And it was just a hobby, but it was wonderful.
You loved it.
And I loved it. And my brother was an athlete, but he wasn't quite as strong in any of his events as I was. And I used to come home with as many as 7 medals, and he'd come home with a 4th. And I used to feel sorry for him, but because he was older, that was that sibling rivalry.
Mm.
And it gave me the opportunity. My first Commonwealth Games was 1958, before most athletes were born.
Was that actually the Empire Games,
I
believe?
It was.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I still have friendships of Australians who came and competed at those games, and go and visit them in Australia, So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to see the world and to make friendships. And I would recommend it to any young person who has talent not to waste it, to go for it.
Exactly. Couldn't say it better myself. You touched on 2 role models of yours there, Maeve Kyle and Thelma Hopkins. How important was that, the fact that they were visible to you from your early career? How did that help you?
It helped me in the sense that they became friends. So I realized that there was nothing different about them. They were just normal people that had a talent, if you know what I mean. Thelma took me to my first British Championships, which were held in the White City in London, and I was 16, and she was getting taxis, and I didn't have the money, and she took me out to a Chinese restaurant for the first time, and I'd never had that experience. And sitting on the grass watching her winning the high jump, and I was like a schoolgirl. It was magical, and she was talking to people who were internationally well known, and I was in awe and loving it. Loving the fact that she was kind to me and supported me. And then Maeve asked me to join Ballymena Athletic Club, and I did compete for them many years. But one of the first things we did was go down to Trinity College Sports in Dublin. Mm-hmm. And in those days, the ladies all wore hats, and the men were all dressed in suits. It was not like today where everybody turns up in their trackies and very casual. And I have a photograph of me high jumping, and the official who was marking the scores was in Top Hat and Tails.
I saw that actually on that Netflix documentary, The Gathering of Champions. They all had little green hats on. It was so formal compared to now.
He was called Ulick O'Connor, and was a I think, a barrister and also a journalist. So those were amazing days for me. Travelling to Dublin was a big experience. Now it's only an hour and a half down the road or less. But I had the opportunity to do things that other girls in school weren't doing, and it was exciting.
So you almost came into the pathway and quickly got quite engaged in the high performance end of things. Would that be right in saying?
Yeah.
When did you decide that you really wanted to go all the way and you were going for Olympic gold?
Never. It was an evolution, really. I was doing well at the pentathlon, improving in all my skills. Didn't train that hard because I was training to be a teacher at the time, and I had to keep involved with that, but did a lot of weight training. Buster McShane became interested after the Commonwealth Games in Cardiff, or the Impact Games, and he invited all the athletes to go and do weight training in his health club. And there was a group of about 5 or 6 girls went, and we used to get the key at an ice cream shop across the road and let ourselves in. And he then recognised that he felt that I wasn't progressing at the level that I should, and asked me would I like him to help me. And the first day we went to Olmo Park, which used to have a track in it, and the shot circle was full of water and leaves and horrible. And we eventually found a groundsman who were able to lend us a brush to sweep it out. And those that he sacrificed time for me made me feel important. And he started helping me be better at the shot. And then we started coming here and using the facilities here. And it was the opportunity that I was given, but that I took.
Yeah.
You know, that in
grabbed it with 2 hands almost.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he was so keen to see me progress. And I was invited then from the Commonwealth Games in 58 to 62. I went to Australia. And that was an amazing experience. And I was 4th in the shot put. So then 64 came along, and the pentathlon was the first time in the Olympic programme.
Wow.
And Mary Rand, who most people of today won't remember, but she was the golden girl of that era. She and I shared a room with Anne Packer, and they got 5 medals, 2 golds, 2 silver and a bronze between them. And I was 4th.
So that's more inspiration surrounding you there, lifting you up almost.
And they hammered a nail into the bedroom wall so they'd have somewhere to hang their medals. I didn't.
Okay.
But being 4th in the world isn't too bad.
No.
And so that inspired me to enjoy the opportunity. That was Tokyo, Japan. I mean, nobody in Northern Ireland was getting those opportunities. So the next Commonwealth Games was 66 in Jamaica. And I didn't have a pentathlon still in the Commonwealth programme. So my coach persuaded me to gain 2 stone and to win the shot put.
Okay. Was that easy to do?
No. I have photographs of the eating regime that I had. And I had to keep my speed up as well. I was sprinting and it was very hard. And I hated being that much bigger. But on the night of the competition in Jamaica, and I had broken the Commonwealth record the week before the competition, but the men's decathlon javelin was being run across where we were to put the shot. And by the time they finished, I'd lost the adrenaline and I ended up with a silver medal.
Okay.
And he was so disappointed, he stormed out of the stadium. He couldn't believe that I'd let him down so much.
Dear.
I know. And he was persuaded to come back a few days later, and I said to him, why did you do that? He said, Mary, you could have won that, with your eyes closed. Why did you? And I said, well, when I go home to Belfast, people will still like me. And he said, well, if that's your attitude, you might as well give up now.
Okay. And was that a learning curve for you?
It was. And I felt at that stage in my career that if I was too successful, that people would be jealous of my success. They weren't at all. Once I started winning, as I did in the next Commonwealth Games, which were the first time a pentathlon was in the Commonwealth programme in Edinburgh, and I won 2 gold medals.
Wow.
And when I came home, people still did like me. And it was amazing, the response of people. Troubles were on. It was success, and it was good news for a change, and it was really nice.
It probably lifted people at home who were living through hard times. So you've had that many successes, all those Commonwealth Games medals, the Olympic gold. Tell me this though, which one gave you the most personal satisfaction?
Oh, definitely Munich, because Olympic Games is the Olympic medal is the ultimate in sporting terms as a sports person, I think. And we didn't talk about how good I was or how prepared I was, but I was fortunate to win a Churchill Fellowship, and that allowed me to go to America, train for 6 weeks. Here, it was always raining. I worked full time. The troubles, I often got on a bus on the Antrim Road where I lived with my shot and starting blocks to come here to train, and bombs would be going off in the city. And I never turned back. I always ended up here, very often on my own. Remember one night that it started to snow when I had all the high jump beds down at this end of the track.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I got them back up the steps and into the pavilion, my hands were so cold I couldn't close the up and over door. Had to run up to the caretaker and ask him to come and help me close the door down. People don't know about nights like that when it was horrendous. I won by 1/10 of a second in Munich out of 5 events over 2 days. Like, what a small margin. But when Heidi was here last year to celebrate my 50th anniversary, Jim nearly said to her, "Have you forgiven Mary for beating you?" And she said no. And I don't blame her, because she was the star of the Munich Olympics in that she was the local girl. She had won a gold medal in the long jump, and she also won a gold medal in the relay for Germany.
Wow.
So to be pipped at the post by this
Northern
girl
Irish
from
girl.
Northern Ireland, although we did know each other and respected each other enormously. And, it was nice to share the memories with her.
It was lovely to see her over, and there were so many lovely celebrations last year with it being the 50th anniversary. Do you want to give us a wee look into some of the highlights of that?
Well, the fact that Daly brought his son here to compete in a decathlon the days that we were having afternoon tea to celebrate my success. It was obviously a way of raising money for my trust, which is very close to my heart, because I don't want any young person from Northern Ireland to be deprived of the opportunity of using their skills to improve their lifestyle and their opportunity to succeed in sport. And through the Mary Peters Trust, which has been going now for over 40 years, we've helped over 4,000 athletes. And we've got Olympic, Paralympic, European, World, Commonwealth, Irish, British record holders. And it's a joy to see them succeeding. And, sport is more and more expensive for young people now.
Yeah, of course.
Even a pair of spikes or trainers are very expensive, and the travel costs. So we give about 150 bursaries each year to help young people on their road to success.
And what inspired you to set that trust up? Was it your own story?
Because I struggled.
You struggled your way through and you wanted to make a difference?
Well, when I won my gold medal, I was in the red in the bank. And, if you win a gold medal nowadays, you get $1 million just like that. Now, I've never had money, but when I started raising money for the track, I was giving it to the track, not to me, and then it started with the trust. But I feel that young people could be deprived if they don't have the money to be able to travel to British championships or Irish championships. Once they get to a certain level, they get their lottery funding and sponsorship support. But it's getting to that level that's so important.
Bridging that gap almost there to actually being there.
But also letting them realise that we acknowledge that they're going to be excellent in sport, and to give them that feeling that they're important.
They've got potential. Yeah, brilliant. So your career was so long and so successful. What do you put that down to in terms of your longevity and the fact that you remained healthy and inspired for so long?
I think I was a slow developer, a slow starter. You know that we have a seat here in memory of my coach Buster McShane, and it says, in memory of Buster McShane, who made an average athlete into an Olympic champion. And that is absolutely true. I would not have been an Olympic athlete, never mind champion, if it hadn't been for his dedication and he believed in me and I believed in him. If he said to me I was going to jump 6 feet in the high jump, I jumped 5'11 3/4. Nearly made it.
Almost there.
Yes, I wanted. If he put his trust in me that I was capable of something, I wanted to prove it.
And that's so important, that level of trust from both sides. And would you say his methods were ahead of the game at the time?
I think so, because he read a lot about American sport and how it was developing, and they were using weights way before we were in the UK. And a lot of my training was lifting very heavy weights. I mean, I did a quarter squat moving about that much with 860 pounds on my shoulders, and was bench pressing with 250 pounds, which is a heavy weight for a woman. Nowadays, the girls do weight lifting and it's different, but in those days it was very new. And he always worked on my weaknesses rather than on my strengths. And I think that was revolutionary at the time too, you know. But we had some very wet days up here, and there's a drain at the side here, and I made them keep it when they were making the developments at the track, because he used to stand at the bottom and shout at me as I
doing your
ran up to the top. Yes, and I hated doing the steps here. But you see, if I hadn't done all that hard work, and I was working full time and had to fit in the hours, I would never have made it. But it was because he was dedicated and devoted to making me into a champion, which was great.
Exactly. And so then when you came back, when did you make the decision that it's time to step away and put more into your trust and your next stages of your career? Was that an easy decision and an easy retirement as an athlete?
No, but I went into team management then and was team manager of the British athletic team for 2 Olympics, Moscow and Los Angeles. So I wasn't lost to the sport, I was lost to it here because things were happening. Les Jones, who is here on the wall, Les was very good at promoting athletics, but I developed other skills by team managing, which I loved.
So you transitioned from athlete into team management quite quickly, would you say?
Yeah.
And was it easy to let go of the athlete that was inside you and be the coach manager?
Well, after Munich, I did one more Commonwealth Games, which was my 5th. So I was nearly 35 by then, so I was quite mature. You could be a veteran by 35 anyway.
That's right.
So it wasn't too hard to retire from actives. But I've never gave up sport because I opened my health club then, and that was my way of earning a living. And 25 years ran a health club in Lisbon.
I didn't know that at all.
Did you?
So how did that transpire? Tell us a little bit more
Well,
about
because I used to work in Buster's gym when I gave up teaching because they wouldn't let me have time off for my sport. I worked for a number of years in his gym, and then after he died, I felt I wanted to do other things in my life. And when I'd done a bit of traveling and television work and radio, I decided I'd like my own gym because I loved that work. And so for 25 years in Lisbon, I looked after people who had problems with their health, or we produced some Olympic champions, and I worked with them, and housewives who came to keep fit and enjoy.
Maximising the power of sport through a health club. There's a lot of people doing that now. You were obviously trailblazing yourself.
But it was 12 hours a day every day. And
Hard
I was
work.
on the sports council, and I was travelling to do all sorts of other things. But lovely, lovely life. Yeah.
So you've had a very successful career as a female in sport. What advice would you give to other females in sport when they're striving for success in
Enjoy
their
it.
careers?
Most important thing is always to enjoy it. I think, there's a lot of girls that have put off sport in school because it's not exciting.
Yeah.
But when I was talking to Grace Carson last night and how she got involved, it's the inspiration of a teacher sometimes, or a coach within the school, or somebody in the town who's enthusiastic, who gives you that motivation, like Buster did for me. And some girls, they feel they're missing out if they can't go to a dance or a social event or do something on a Saturday night. I was happy. I'd trained all afternoon and I was tired and I wanted to just sit and relax or read a book or watch television. I got my joy from the friendships and the opportunities of travel, and good fitness, good healthy fitness.
I have to say though, one of my favourite pictures of you is the one with the Rolling Stones, and you have a glass in your hand. So you obviously at one stage enjoy a party.
Absolutely.
And like to have some fun. And so how did you manage that side of your personality whilst trying to be an athlete?
Well, that happened because I won the Sports Personality of the Year 1964 after being fourth, and they were appearing in one of the theatres in town, and I was asked would I like to photograph with them before I went. I didn't know I was receiving the award that night, and so they were all interested about the thousands of women that were screaming outside than they were in me, but that's a nice photograph to have.
Lovely photo, yeah. Good times, very good. Mary, your personal energy levels and your drive are an inspiration to many, including myself, I have to say that. How has sport influenced your life in terms of that, zest for life? How do you feel that sport helps people's life, a life lived in sport? How does that encourage them to deal with life's challenges?
I think because you're fitter and healthier, you can challenge yourself more, but also your expectations are high. You don't want to let yourself down in any part of life.
Yeah.
And I got very down at one stage when I took upon myself too many things and couldn't fulfill all I wanted to do. And I got shingles, and that was a learning curve. And it took me a little while to overcome that. But other than that, I don't want to waste a minute of any day. I have to fill in as much as I can. And a dear friend recognized my age recently, and he said to me, at 84 you should be having days off. And I said, but what would I do? What would I do sitting at home home alone? And I do have a garden, and I do patchwork quilting and knitting and all sorts of things, but because he's made me have Monday and Tuesday off, I fill Wednesday, Thursday and Friday with four things instead of two things. I just love the opportunity to help other people and to perhaps inspire others to enjoy life as much as I have. And the opportunities that have come my way are unbelievable. To be Lord Lieutenant of Belfast and to serve twice on the English Sports Council as an independent, and to be president of British Athletics for a number of years, and I just love what I do, and I would like to help people of Northern Ireland pursue their dreams.
Thank you. We're going to change it up a little bit now, and Isaac McCollum, who is our producer, editor today, and also created the podcast series, he's going to hit you with a few quick fire questions.
Okay.
So, Mary, the first one is, can you tell us a fun fact that not many of the listeners would know about you?
Well, I did declare this last night. I knit dishcloths. How sad is that? And somebody said, dishcloths? And I said, yes, you can boil them and bleach them, and they last for a long time. But also, if you're on a boring phone call, you can knit a dishcloth in an hour.
That's multitasking right there.
I love my garden and I love walking now, and I'm out almost every night of the week doing something, talking to groups of young people or old people even, and I just have a very inspiring life.
That you do indeed. How would your friends describe you in 3 words?
Oh, dear. I would dread to think. I hope they'd think I was kind and generous and never available.
So, what was your favourite event in the pentathlon?
I loved the hurdles because people watched the race. If you're putting the shot or high jumping at the end of a stadium, people don't watch it because they're always watching what's on the track. And if you ran a very good hurdles race, you never knew you'd had gone over the barriers because they weren't in the way. You just sprinted from start to finish.
What's your favourite sporting memory off the track?
My favourite was the official opening, when we got the children of the primary schools of the local area to spell my name with their bodies on the track so that they would have a memory. And I meet all these middle-aged ladies now who tell me, I was in the letter E or I was in the letter T. And as I walked away that day, having almost personally raised the money for it, this teacher ran after me and she said, I'm a teacher from the markets area of Belfast. And one of the little girls said to me, Miss, isn't this a lovely area? I've never seen a mountain before. And the mountain was the grassy slope at the side of the track. And that made it all worthwhile for me.
Very good. Who was your favourite athlete when you were competing? So that could be within athletics or just any other sport in general.
It was Mary Rand who was my inspiration, who I adored as a friend and still friends to this day. And she won a gold, a silver and a bronze and remains friends to this day.
If you had to go on a training camp with any athlete, so that could be past or present, who would it be?
Gosh. There's people I wouldn't want to go with because they train too hard. Probably my my great niece, who's been selected to play for hockey for Australia, and to go and even jog around a track with her would be the greatest joy for me because she's following in my footsteps, hopefully as an Olympian for Paris.
Do you have a funny story you could tell the listeners?
Well, I was down here one day having some photographs taken with my gold medal, and there was a group of school children, and I said, would you like to see an Olympic gold medal? And this wee boy said, is it full of chocolate? And I was recently in a restaurant and the man who was the waiter said to me, could I show you a photograph? And I said, oh, I bet it's you in your primary school days in your short pants. And he said, no, come to see this. And he had a photograph of a dog begging at my statue, wanting a dog biscuit from me. So I have lovely times up here because everybody, if I turn up at the track, is surprised to see me and they all go, oh, are you Mary Peters? And that's the most often question I'm asked. Are you Mary Peters? Even on the bus, a lady said to me one day, are you Mary Peters and you're travelling on the bus? And I said, I know, but it's free when you're my age.
So we asked our previous podcast guest, Grace Carson, to come up with a question to ask you.
Oh.
So her question was, did you ever doubt yourself or have other people tell you you weren't going to achieve the success you did? And if so, how did you overcome this?
Well, there used to be a man called Jeff Dyson who was the national coach for the Great Britain, and he came over here when I was a student, about 18, to do a talk and a lesson, a coaching session. And I had been there during the day and I had come back in the evening to help him with shot putters. And he said to me, would you go home? You're never going to make it. And I met him at a dinner in London with my gold medal and I reminded him, and he left the dinner because he didn't believe that he had said that to me. But I know he did. But it made me want to prove to him that I was going to make it. So sometimes it's a kind thing. When I was team manager in Moscow, and Seb Coe and Steve Ovett were competing against each other, And I had to go to the airport to meet some athletes coming in the night they were racing. And as we got to the village, I ran to watch the race on television, and Steve Ovett beat Sebco. And I was horrified because I was sure he was going to win the gold. And I thought that was his chance of success gone. But I stayed around and waited for the coaches coming back from the stadium, the buses. And I saw Seb and his father coming in side gate, and I ran across and gave Seb a hug and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I still love you." And his father said, "Don't kiss an idiot." So I said, "I will anyway," and kissed his father. Now that was his father doing the same to him as the coach said to me, you know, kick up the bum, do it. And he went out and won the 1500 metres. So sometimes a cruel remark can make a difference.
Yeah.
That can make you into a champion.
Drive you on, definitely. Okay.
That's-
So we're getting towards the end of the podcast, and we'd just like to look a little bit into the future for you. So I know you've an exciting weekend coming up. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I can pinch myself every day because I don't believe the things that have happened to me in my life as a result of my success in sport. And Her Majesty made me a member of the Order of the Garter, of which there are only 24 of us. And in that role, I'm in the leading procession at the coronation of King Charles. And I just feel so humble as a Northern Ireland girl to be in that position.
Brilliant. And I'm sure there's a lot of excitement and organising to be done in the lead up to it, and we're taking your time away from that, so we're really appreciative that you've come through this with us today. The other thing is, I believe you're working on another book.
Oh yes, I've just finishing my autobiography, because I wrote my original in 1974, and of course life has been very different since then. So very excited, hope it'll be finished by September this year, and it's going to be called Mary Peaches My Story. I wanted it to be called Mary Peas Again because my first book was Mary P. But we felt it was a bit of dignity. We should call it My Story.
Brilliant. Look forward to that. Is there anything coming up for the Trust in the near future that we should look out for?
We're having all sorts of fundraising events, because I realise time's running out for me, and I have to get as much money in the bank so that my legacy will continue when I'm no longer here. So we have lots of fundraising events, and our young people travelling all over the world representing Northern Ireland in the best possible way. And I hope that we'll have some more athletes going to the Olympics in Paris. Well, not only athletes, sports people. And we don't distinguish between whether they're British or Irish or able-bodied or have a disability. If they're going to show talent, we're supporting them.
Listen, we'll finish it there. It has been a wonderful afternoon. We're delighted to have had you. Maybe you'll come back again sometime and tell us all about the coronation and what else is happening after that. Listen, thank you so much, and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.